Hey everyone, this is Ben from LiveBellinghamNow, and welcome to our November nonprofit series. This week, we're taking a look at PNW Plateful, an organization founded by catering company Calypso Kitchen that started combating food insecurity in 2019. Their mission is to foster food security through nutritious meals, education, and collaboration, and in 6 years have given 118,000 plus meals to our community. Here to talk more about their mission and impact is their executive director, Sarah Chan.
Hi, my name is Sarah Chan. I am the small business owner of a catering company here in Bellingham, Washington, Calypso Kitchen. And it is from that catering business that I was able to very easily segue into my nonprofit work that I do, which is for PNW Plateful. And basically, PNW Plateful started very organically out of my business, Calypso Kitchen. I would do a catering, and if there was leftover food, we don't throw away food. So we used up every bit of the leftovers to create meals that was then shared with community members who needed meals. And about 5 years ago, I was approached by someone who asked me if I would be able to help them provide meals to the homeless in our community. And at that time, I didn't really have a whole lot of outreach in the community on that level. But I knew that we had a problem, we had an issue here in the community. And because of the way that I grew up in the Caribbean, in Trinidad, where I grew up living with my grandmother and my parents, the example was set for me where you take care of your community. My grandmother cooked and would take care of neighbors who needed help. We always had this policy of open door. Someone would visit. There'd be an uninvited visitor, but invited in a way because there was always a little bit of whatever we cooked or we had for lunch that day, for dinner that day. A plate of food was always something that someone coming in unexpectedly could get in my home. And we were not wealthy folks, but it didn't matter. And that to me is what has set the precedent for what I do. I grew up seeing people take care of the community, of villages where I lived. And when I moved here and I started doing the work that I'm doing, even before I started that work, I knew that I wanted to be that same person. I didn't even know it. It's just something that is me. It's who I am. I'm a nurturer. I take care of people. And in this case, because I have a catering company, it was fairly easy for me to just be able to use the leftovers and create those meals. That was the organic transition of catering into my nonprofit. It didn't happen very easily, however. The first couple of years, we were creating 150 meals every week that would go out hot into the community. The work became a whole lot, and I knew that I needed to give it some direction, and hence the actual formation of a 501c3, and that didn't happen with me alone. Again, community. I would speak to people about what I was doing, and I spoke to folks until I found the right folks who welcomed the idea of what I was doing, the concept of what I was doing, and why I was doing it. And luckily, those folks, most of them are my board members today. So we formed that 501c3, I believe, in 2019. So we've been a nonprofit since then. And at this point, from 150 meals, we have grown to 800 individually packaged meals that go out into the community every week. It is served through the food banks in our community. They are our partners. The food banks, the local food banks are our partners who we take these meals to, and they get it into the hands of their clients who need those meals. We also serve organizations such as the YWCA, which with Food Desert Fighters, and in the past we've worked with Northwest Youth, and we intend to work with them again. But organizations like these that serve our community, a part of the community that really needs our help, their help, that's who we partner with to get the foods and the food that we make into the right hands. And I want to state that the difference that we are making here is we are making scratch-made meals, healthy, nutritious meals, scratch-made, the same way I would make my catering meals. We make meals from scratch with healthy, fresh ingredients, as local as possible when we can get it, and putting that into something that's just delicious and nutritious, and something that when somebody receives it and when they get to consume it, it's comfort for them. It gives them a little bit of dignity. They know that somebody lovingly made this meal for them intentionally. Without going too much on a personal level, I can safely say that to be able to function as a member of society that can actually be able to function well, to be able to think well, to be able to physically move well, people need to have healthy, nutritious food. Healthy, nutritious food shouldn't be a privilege. It should be something that everybody can have access to, right? Without healthy, nutritious options in our diet, we can look forward to things like being ill, not being able to get your job done, not being able to sit in school and study, concentrate. And to me, that's one of the things that's working with Birchwood Food Desert Fighters. I have a real passion for that particular organization because the Birchwood neighborhood in our community is one of the most diverse communities here in Whatcom County. I think it is the most diverse community here in Whatcom County. However, they are very much affected by poverty and all the ill effects of poverty. And one of those ill effects is we have people who are working, families with two parents working, bringing in an income, and yet they have to make a choice whether to pay a bill or to buy healthy, nutritious options. And what that does is those parents who are working obviously don't have healthy food. How can they function well at the maximum? But also their kids who are going to school. How do we expect these kids to go to school and sit and be able to concentrate on the work that they're doing, on the work that they're being taught in school? And that's why we have kids that just, you go through 5 years of school, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of school, you're sitting there with hungry tummies. It's just not going to be a good situation. This is how we end up with the cycle of problems that we have in this country, where there's so much hospitalizations, medical care, because of all the ill effects of not having access to healthy, nutritious food, and horrible food that is not good for you being so much cheaper. So people just have no choice. They buy that food and then they consume that food and then they get sick and then they have all these problems, and then we end up with a terrible cycle of why we should have access to healthy, nutritious food. That is to answer that question, why we need to treat our community like if it's not a privilege, but it's something that you should have access to, healthy, nutritious food, as opposed to having a lot of food that is just not healthy and nutritious being easily accessible. And this is in no way to throw shade on food banks or anything like that, because they do a phenomenal job, and the food banks in our county do the best that they could with the resources that they have access to. When they go to a food bank to get their food and they can't access healthy, nutritious choices, or the majority of those choices are not healthy and nutritious, well, that's what they're gonna end up eating, consuming, feeding their families. And that is why I think it's important that we start, with what we're doing, trying to provide that direct route to a food bank, where a food bank can now have food that is healthy and nutritious to share with the community. And again, this is not to throw any sort of shade on food banks in our community, because I believe that they are doing the best that they can do with the resources that they have access to on a wider scale. I think we need to have a little revolution of how we feed our community, what we think are the best choices. But that's not a simple, easy thing. That's a whole lot of levels and a whole lot of teaching and changing of mindsets.
What do you wish more people knew about the community you uplift, about the people that you're feeding?
They're regular folks. Everybody who accesses our meal, they're human beings with the same needs that we have. It's for everybody. It doesn't matter if what your income level is, or if you're shopping at a food bank, or that is where it is right now, because that is where the most need is, right? However, I make my food for me and for my family and for everybody's family. It's something that anybody would eat. Anybody would feel really good to eat. And part of that is I want everybody to feel like if there's humility in the situation. It's not like, oh, you're getting food from the food bank. No, that's not the case. If that is where you have to get your food from right at this point in time, that doesn't determine your entire life. It is what it is right now. That's all. To support my nonprofit at this point in time, financial resources are what we need to be able to make our purchases. We are a very small nonprofit. I would love to continue growing. As I said, we started from 50 to 150 and now we're at 800 meals every week. We would love to be able to grow our organization. At the moment, we are trying to sustain it where it is and to create a functioning system where we can then grow. To support us, go to our website. There's a link there to donate to us. Send us an email if you have some ideas about what you'd like to do, or give me a call if you have an idea of how you can help. I will say a lot of people like to ask, can we volunteer in your kitchen? Unfortunately, at this point in time, I don't have access to allowing that to happen. However, we quite often have opportunities for fundraising. We are looking for opportunities for people to volunteer to help us raise funds. And if you have an idea of how we can do that, or if you'd like to do that for us, please go directly to our website, or if you'd like to email us a check or anything, on our website, there's all our addresses. Call us if you have a question, email questions to me. Well, I will say one of the biggest challenges that we currently are facing is we were able 2 years ago to attain a grant, a county grant that sustained us, that I would say 75% sustained our meals that were going out, and that grant was cut by 1/5 because of all the challenges that are happening financially in our community. I don't think we were targeted in any particular way. It's just that the resources are not there. And I definitely want to say we are working in a community where I feel everybody that we're working with, they are concerned. They want to do their best. Community leaders want to do their best. But we're also working in a situation where resources are becoming less and less, and we have to find ways to deal with that. I just had the opportunity to listen to Mayor Kim Lund, and I was so impressed by how hard she's working, but how much thought she's putting into it. And I know she's working with a team, so I'm guessing how much thought they are all putting into what it is we need to do as a community to be able to survive this and thrive. This is where I think, even though that grant was cut and that is going to affect us so adversely, I have challenged myself to step up to that. How do we figure this out? How do we move forward? How do we sustain? And community, I think, is the biggest part of it. We live in a community. We should take care of our neighbors. And I am challenging everyone out there who has the opportunity to listen to this and learn about PNW Plateful to accept the challenge of helping us to take care of our neighbors. I shared this recently with the WDRC, who has nominated us this year for one of their awards. This is something that I shared, and I think it resonates how we feel about the work that we're doing at PNW Plateful and why we're doing the work. To me, peace building starts with meeting people where they are and making sure their most basic needs are met. Food is one of the most fundamental aspects of life. Through PNW Plateful, we are not just feeding people, we are restoring dignity, creating stability, and reminding folks that they matter. Every scratch-made meal we share is a quiet act of love and solidarity. It's our way of saying, we see you, we care about you, and you belong. In a community where some don't know where their next meal is coming from, we're helping build peace one plate at a time, because when people feel nourished and supported, they can show up for their families, for their neighbors, and for their community. Peace doesn't always look like big gestures. Sometimes it's a warm meal shared with care and consistency, and that's how we are building peace in Whatcom County. And yeah, this was specifically made for the Peace Builder Award, but it is truly how I feel as folks living anywhere in any community. We can't wait for the system, the state, to take care of us. We have to take care of the people in our community, because that is what community is about. That is how we build a loving community.